Back. We're now gonna work on the square root method. The square root method involves not a factoring like we're used to. Instead, we actually don't create a product that's equal to 0. We take the square root of both sides if we can. So in this case, we actually bring the 15 to the right side. We divide everything by 3, and we take the square root of both sides. Now, you got to be a little careful here. Taking the square root, technically the square root is just the positive root of that problem. And so you actually have to introduce a plus or minus, because there are two possibilities. Because a square root of 5 squared will give you 5, and a negative square root of 5, if you square that whole thing, you will also get a positive 5. So x equals plus or minus the square root of 5 is the correct answer. And you got to be careful about how you report it. So use radicals as needed. Complex numbers, use a comma to separate your answer. So you would say the square root of 5, comma, the negative square root of 5. Let's do another one with that has an imaginary solution. So look at number 5 here. You got 3x squared plus 21 equals 0. So this square root method, you bring the 21 to the right, you divide, you get negative 7. Now, there is no real number squared that's equal to negative 7, but you can definitely take the square root of both sides. You're going to put a plus or minus because of both possibilities exist. And this is a quadratic. Quadratics have two solutions, real or imaginary. And so pulling that square root of negative 1 out as an I, you get plus or minus the square root of 7, and then you have an I on the outside. So you would write that as the square root of 7i, comma, the negative square root of 7i. All right. So let's see one that the next bit. Let's go ahead and do a couple of these that look a little different. Let's do the 4c squared equals 36c. Now you got to be careful here. You don't just take the square root of both sides there. That would give you 2c is the plus or minus the square root of 36c. That's not really helpful. That's not the route we want to go with this. The square root method only works if what you have on the right hand side is actually something that can be square rooted, a number, like what we've been seeing. So the fact that c is located over here causes a little problem there. So we're actually going to bring that back to the other side, and we're going to factor. We're going to use the zero product property here. We're going to pull out a 4. We're going to pull out a c. What's left behind is a c and a 9. So we want to use actually the zero product property here. This is what we're looking for, a product of two numbers equaling 0. So 4c must be 0, or c minus 9 must be 0. So c equals 0, or c equals 9. So be careful here. This was not a square root method problem because of that c on the right hand side. Let's do number 7, and then we'll call it a day on this video. Now this one is a cubic, but you can see there's a y in common in all of the terms. So the thing we want to do is factor, if we can, as much as possible before we use the zero product property. The zero product property requires we have products. And we can't use the square root method because you can't isolate a constant on the right. So pulling out a y is the right idea. That leaves a 3y squared behind, a minus 14y, and a minus 5. All right, now we need to go a little farther here. We want to factor again. Now this factorization could be tricky. The 3y and y, that seems pretty obvious. But then when you do your outer and inner, you got to end up with a negative 14 when you're done. Now I have a lot of practice with this, and you will develop those skills as well. But I'm thinking 5, 1 like this. That would be 5 times 3 is 15, and then that 1 will give me